was the Kuskalana River Bridge that can't be avoided if you want to travel to McCarthy, Alaska and the Kennecott copper mines. It wasn't the scariest bridge I've ever driven, but when I got a glimpse of it as we approached, I said a four-letter word and then said to John, "I'm not sure I can drive across this." I will also admit that I let John drive it going up, but I did tackle my fears and drove it on the way down. This bridge was built in 1910. It is a single track and it covers a 525-foot span across the river, and the drop is 238 feet deep. It is called the biggest thrill on the road to McCarthy. A trip to Alaska requires conquering a few fears and taking some risks. But isn't that why we go to Alaska? You spend a year planning and preparing with suspension upgrades, with spare tires and tools and extra insurance, maybe emergency communication devices, proper provisions, maps, fuel, everything including the kitchen sink. So you've got to go for it. First, I want to thank Ken for telling us about this side trip and for encouraging us to go. This video is not intended to discourage anyone or to frighten anyone from taking this journey, but to inform you so that you can be well prepared and know what to expect, and hopefully spend multiple days in the Kennecott McCarthy area enjoying and exploring the old copper mine and the ghost town and the 8 million acres of the Wrangell St. Elias National Park, the largest national park in the United States. But if you don't have the appropriate vehicle, or you just don't want to put your vehicle through this, then you can also get there by airplane. Wrangell Air has a flight from Chitina to McCarthy. I think it's 2 flights every single day. So you could come up and spend the day, or you could spend multiple days, because there's also plenty of accommodation up there if you plan ahead. The McCarthy Road starts in Chitina, Alaska, which is 30 miles from the Glen Highway. It follows the route that was the Copper River and Northwestern Railway. Most of the road is gravel, and depending on when it was last graded by the state of Alaska, which maintains the road, it may loosen a few of your fillings. I would say on our visit it was a confederacy of potholes, washboard, and frost heaves. And then you can throw on a healthy dose of dust and the occasional landslide, and you've probably got yourself a nice, memorable adventure. Chitina became a ghost town in 1938 when the Kennecott mine closed. It is now known as the dip netting capital of Alaska. We had never seen dip netting in action, so after we got a campsite right on the Copper River, it's actually kind of a free campground, we then went over and watched some of the fishermen with their dip nets. The next morning we were ready to tackle the 2.5-hour drive to McCarthy. Now, the best source for that drive and what to expect is the milepost book. And they will have the typical warnings that they give about rocks and frost heaves and ruts and all that sort of thing. And it's quite valuable, so I do urge people to pick up a copy of the milepost.
Get out the laundry and the washboard.
speed limit is 35, but in a lot of locations you'll be going as slow as 5 to 10 miles per hour. Now the locals don't seem to slow down for anybody, and they travel, I think, faster than 35. So and when I saw someone coming in the opposite direction, I just pulled over and stopped and got as close to the shrubs as I could. You don't actually drive to either Mccarthy or Kennecott. You actually drive to a footbridge, and then you take the footbridge across where you pick up a shuttle. The shuttle starts at 9 a.m. from the footbridge, and the free section is from the bridge to Mccarthy, which is just maybe a half a mile away. And then in Mccarthy, there is a paid shuttle that you take from Mccarthy up to Kennecott, and it's a 5-mile drive, or you can walk it if you want. And that shuttle is $10 or $15 round trip. Before we got to the footbridge, though, there is about maybe quarter-mile away, there is a visitor information center where we stopped and purchased our shuttle tickets, as well as an overnight parking permit. Now, if you park there during the day, it's free, at least at this one location. If you park closer to the footbridge, then you have to pay a higher fee. But at this information center, they charge $5 if you want to park overnight, and I asked the guy if we could sleep in our van there overnight, and he said sure. And there is a pit toilet there if you need that. We chose to take the free shuttle up to Mccarthy and then kind of explore that ghost town, which used to service Kennecott back in the days when the mine was open. It was a lot of prostitution and gambling and alcohol and all of that. So it was your typical Western mining town. But today they've refurbished a lot of the buildings. There are actually stores there, and you can sign up for tours and things there. There's also several nice restaurants and a general store. And we opted to go into the general store, and they had ice cream, which was really quite good. Picked up the paid shuttle. It operates every 30 minutes and took that up to the Kennecott Mines, and that's about a 15 to 20 minute drive. Yeah, it looks like mining tailings. You can, of course, explore the old copper mine on your own, and go in various buildings and do it that way, or you can opt for a tour. And we opted for the tour. It had been recommended, and it includes going into the old mill, where they crushed the rock to get the copper out. And what some of you may remember, back in 1981, John Denver did a chase scene that was filmed at the Kennecott Mines. The park, it only became a park in 1980, so when you look at the old footage, it looks quite a mess. Since then, the mill area has been altered a little bit. They claim that they want to keep the mill in kind of a suspended state of decay, but the rest of the buildings in that community, they are improving and opening up to the public. But there are also some private residences there, and people who have owned those through generations are still allowed to live there. also several restaurants at the property. One is called Meat's a Wagon, that had been recommended by the guy that was operating the general store, and John had 2 very good meals there. One of the buildings that was used for housing at the time has now been improved and serves as visitor accommodations, so you can book rooms at right in the old mine area. We had such a good time that first day that we decided to stay an extra day and come back for the glacier walk. If you have your own crampons and are familiar with walking on glaciers, you can certainly go out on your own. But the tour, provided those things and also gave us a little bit more information about glaciers and the geology of the area and that sort of thing. And we enjoyed it. The groups are limited to 8 people, and the only thing I would say is that it's advertised as a moderate hike, and I would say it's more than that for most people. There are some really steep sections. It's also longer than it's advertised. They claim it's 2 miles long, but we calculated it's closer to 3 miles each direction. I also recommend people take walking sticks, trekking poles, for those really steep sections, because those can also be quite slippery in the very loose soil that we have found in Alaska and Canada. You do need to pack your own lunch and water, but out on the glacier we took a lunch break and our tour guide broke out our camp stove and made us hot chocolate. And then John entertained us with his Herman Munster impersonation.
Wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine, wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine, wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine, wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine.
Crampons to pants or to each other or anything like that. So we'll walk with a little wider stance than normal. The other thing that we want to do is, since we have the spikes coming out of our toes, we want to make sure we're lifting our feet a little bit higher as well, especially going downhill. It can be easy to catch those and then kind of trip forward. Yeah.
Face plant. When we got back to the mine, John had enough time to stop at Meat's a Wagon again and get, he said, one of the best tacos he's ever had. And then the tour operator took us back down to the footbridge for us to kind of drag our rear ends back to the van because we were pretty tired. But we had heard that the weather forecast was for rain the next day, and we did not want to be driving on that road on a rainy day. So we opted to drive almost all the way down until we could find a spot to pull over and camp for the night. Now, Milepost does a really good job of telling you about campgrounds wherever you're going, and they pointed out that there were a couple of spots, and we had seen them on the way up. And so we came to a pullout and pulled over. It was high above the Copper River, a beautiful $1 million view, and we took advantage of that and spent a really nice night above the Copper River. From there, it was only a matter of maybe 30 minutes until we got back to pavement, and we're very thankful to be on pavement again. We really only scratched the surface on our trip to Kennecott Mines. There is a lot to do there, lots of hikes. You can do actually overnight hikes. You can get permits there, so you can go back into the wilderness, and there are different hikes to various mines that operated. So I hope this just kind of whets your appetite, maybe makes it gives you an interest in visiting this largest of our national parks and one that is probably the least known of all the parks. We had a really fabulous 3 days getting up to Kennecott, Mccarthy, and exploring all around. I hope you get a chance to do it someday. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.